This is John for Global Traveler. Today I have the pleasure of talking travel with travel expert and author Meena Thiruvengadam. How are you?
Doing fine. How about yourself?
I am good. We just talked. We're both a little bit under the snow, but we're hoping for more sunshine. But we didn't get here to talk weather, although maybe later. But so tell us a little bit about your background, if you would.
Yes, so I have spent my entire career in journalism. Once I found out that I could make a living asking people questions, experiencing cool things around the world, and writing about it, I kind of never looked back. And that eventually led me to travel writing, which is what I've been doing with the last 6 or so years of my career.
So did you ever think that you could make a career out of travel?
No, I didn't. And I think that's why, my previous jobs, anytime I could, if there was an opportunity to do a side story about a destination I was visiting, either personally or for work, I would take that opportunity. But even after years in the media, travel writing didn't seem to be a sustainable thing that I could actually make a meaningful part of my professional portfolio.
I love your website. I love your platform. One of the things that I love is that, one of your focuses is people of color. Obviously, we both agree that they're undervalued, underrated, I guess is a better word. But I like the fact that you incorporate that into everything else. So you're not just solely focused on that, but there's an emphasis on that. How did you come to that decision?
Yeah, I think it's just being a traveler of color. All of these experiences, I think, are things that many of us recount when we're talking to one another. There are certain things that I just took for granted as part of the travel experience. And then I realized, hey, wait a minute, this person has never experienced this, or this always happens to these types of people. So for me, what I'm looking for out of content is content that's going to help me make the most out of every single experience I have. My time is the most limited thing that I've got on this earth, and I want to do as much as possible with it. I want to live as loudly and as broadly as I can. And I know that that means I'm going to have to be strategic and set some priorities in my life, in according to also related to how I travel. So, in the vein of wanting to make the most out of everything that I do, I'm always looking for information that's going to help me be as prepared as possible when I land on the ground for whatever assignment or experience there is. And one thing that I find is there's often not that same information. It's hard for me to get the perspective that I wish I had beforehand before I actually experience that destination. So through my content, what I want to do is bring that perspective to other people who are looking for the same things and might find themselves facing some of the same microaggressions and other challenges that I faced on the road.
What do you think is the biggest challenge you have faced?
I think it's often this attitude maybe that you don't belong in a place. And I'll tell you this most frequently happened. I used to have Premier 1K status with United. And I was shocked because I was always asked to verify my status, whether it was because I was in a pre-boarding line or whether I was in a customer line. The assumption was always that I didn't belong here, that the economy class line was over here. And there was always a look of surprise when I told somebody that I knew that it was priority boarding for 1K members and was there because of that very reason. So, really, I think that's the biggest thing. It's something that causes a little bit of friction when we travel, and then also sometimes makes you question, do I really belong in this place? Is this experience something that for some reason isn't for me? Have I not earned it? Is there something about me that screams that I shouldn't be here? Am I doing something wrong? And I think that those are the deeper questions that nobody wants to ask when they're going on a vacation.
So how would you overcome that? Is that just a matter of spreading the word, getting the information out? Is there something that you can do or the individual traveler can do?
I think partly it is knowing and being prepared that this is going to happen. Even now that I've just got my United Gold, I still get questions about, oh, is this the right line for you? You don't have lounge access and things like that. So one thing I do is I'm prepared for those types of questions, and little by little, I learn how to take it less personally. And I also think about the fact that this could be something that has nothing to do with me. Maybe someone on the other side is projecting something onto me. Whatever it is, I need to let it not be something that really grates on my nerves. Yet knowing that it's an annoying experience, I also know who I can vent with, right? I have friends who experience the same thing, and sometimes it's as little as, my God, can you believe it happened again? And then all of a sudden, it's like I've gotten that angst out of me, and I can just move on to not take it personally.
That's a great attitude. It's actually the best attitude you can have, unfortunately, when stuff like that happens. You've been to 47 states. Is that
Mhm.
is that the, so let me guess, the three that you have not been, would that be Alaska, Hawaii, and Idaho?
No, actually, Nebraska, South Dakota, and North Dakota.
Oh, okay. I'm 0 for 3. So
Yeah.
is there a plan to get to those three? Is there any reason why you haven't gotten to those three yet?
There really hasn't been. The last few years that I've been living in the Midwest, I've meant to do a great Midwest road trip, and I just haven't. So I think that when spring comes around again, maybe this summer, that'll be my priority trip.
So I mean, yeah, you got to knock them off so you could hit the whole 50 because you've got the hardest
Exactly.
ones.
Yeah. And I know that North Dakota throws you a nice party if it's your last state. So I feel like I'll just
Really?
start in Omaha and head straight up.
Well, then
Yeah,
there's your plan. That's perfect.
right?
So, of all the places you've been, either within the country or other countries, has there any place that surprised you, hopefully pleasantly?
Ooh, that is a good question. I think that there are actually a lot of places that surprised me. I think Antarctica is one of them that surprised me the most. You know, it's going to be remote and there's not going to be a lot of services. There's not really commercial industry there. But I think it's different when you land on a giant chunk of ice and there's nothing there. Literally nothing except the giant chunk of ice. And to be so remote and to be so away and disconnected from everything in the world that we live in, to me was just amazing. And to be honest with you, my favorite thing in Antarctica was to turn on my Wi-Fi and look for a signal and to be really ecstatic when I couldn't find one. And also no 5G. So it was just like, wow, I really am in a place where Starbucks nor T-Mobile or McDonald's or Walmart or Amazon can reach me. And there really is nothing to do here but be in nature.
So, in a way, it's kind of freeing, I guess.
Oh yeah, definitely. It just felt great to be disconnected from the world in that way. And it was also February, so I was warmer in Antarctica than my friends were here in Chicago.
Oh, wow. That gives you an edge, sure. Now you've contributed to Lonely Planet, which is pretty cool to do. I know you've done Iceland, you've done Chicago. How did
Mhm.
that come to be? What was that experience like?
Sure. So I actually one of my first ever solo trips was to Iceland. I hadn't really become comfortable traveling by myself, but I knew that Iceland was a relatively safe and small, somewhat manageable seeming place to go. So I went to Iceland and I made some great friends and ended up visiting Iceland several times over the years after that. And I heard that Lonely Planet was looking for a writer for their Iceland guidebook. And I thought I was just going to shoot my shot. I didn't know Iceland as well as someone who had lived there their entire life or had been traveling there for decades. But I knew Iceland well enough to have some expertise to be the one that all my friends came to for advice. And yet I was still, if you will, green enough to have that insatiable curiosity to find out more about the country and to experience it in a way through a newcomer's eyes. So I wrote my pitch about why I thought I was the perfect person to write this guidebook, and I got my opportunity to become a Lonely Planet contributor.
And how did it feel then when you saw your byline, I guess, in Lonely Planet?
It was so odd because I started my career in print and I've written hundreds, maybe even thousands of print articles over the years. But the last several years, it's been mostly digital. So it was just wild to see that here's my name in a book. And I'm a person who grew up going to libraries. Thankfully, having free access to all of these resources and knowledge really opened the world up to me, to lots of things that I may not have otherwise been exposed to at such a young age. So for me, the idea of being in one of the kinds of books that I used to pull off the shelves for geography reports and history papers and whatnot, and to know that I'm in libraries was the most just jaw-dropping thing. I think people say a lot about journalism careers and whether or not you're able to have an impact. But the moment I saw that, it was like, yes, I'm having an impact. People are going to be able to learn about Iceland through me, potentially for decades, through libraries and bookstores and used bookstores. And I'm also able to influence the telling of this story for a while. For example, one of the things I was most proud of in that book was being able to include Shah Rukh Khan in the guidebook because he did a Bollywood dance in front of an Icelandic waterfall.
Wow.
I don't know that that's ever been recorded in an Icelandic guidebook before, but I know lots of Bollywood fans are going to go seek out that very spot because they know and love that movie and actor. And to me, those kinds of things are just cool. They're the kinds of things that you never really think are going to happen to you when you grow up.
Well, I was going to ask you how you impacted travel. You've kind of answered that, so I'll turn the question around. How has travel impacted your life?
It's really given me friends all over the world and given me so many insights. It has filled in a lot of the gaps of my formal education and really helped me to better understand the world. There are certain things that I learned in the classes that I took in high school and college. And then when I go to the place where these historic lessons are set, I realize that maybe I've only gotten part of the story, or maybe that I didn't fully understand the context we were operating in. So there's nothing that's been like being able to see these places and to hear lived experiences from people there that have really opened my eyes to both things that maybe I haven't been taught fully or were never taught at all. So it really makes me a more thoughtful person, a more engaged person, a more compassionate and empathetic person, and someone whose curiosity just keeps going. After all these years of travel, there's still nothing more exciting to me than landing in a place I don't know much about and getting to figure out what it's all about.
You're a Chicagoan, so tell me,
Mhm.
what is your perfect Chicago day? And you can pick any time of year you want.
Oh, summer, definitely. Late July, August, start with yoga on the beach, nice long walk along the lake, have a good brunch with some friends, maybe hit a festival or a concert, a picnic. There's so many things going on in the summertime that it's hard to pick and choose,
Sounds like a perfect day to me, though. Totally.
right?
But now I'm going to put you on the spot. So you gotta get into the debates here. Deep dish versus thin crust.
Ooh, I lived in New York for a long time before coming to Chicago, and I have to say I'm an equal opportunity pizza lover. Sometimes you just want that nice slice that maybe you can walk down the street with or have at the end of a long night of fun. But sometimes, especially now when there's snow on the ground, I love tucking into like a warm, cozy, deep dish. It's just like a nice little heated blanket enveloping you for the winter.
Perfect answer. Another one, hot dogs, mustard or not?
Definitely mustard.
But
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I screwed that question up.
No, no.
Ketchup or not?
I don't need the ketchup. I think it's kind of superfluous. So I've come along to the Chicago way of going with the mustard. Now, that bright green relish, I still question though.
Well, you got me on that one. So, a question I'd like to ask you, especially because you're a Chicagoan, but you've lived elsewhere. The bean gets a lot of publicity.
Hmm.
And I always say, I like the bean. I've got nothing against the bean, but I always think like the Picasso is more Chicago than the bean. And there's so many other great sculptures and art bits more than the bean. Do you have a take on that?
I really love the bean. I think it's a fun photo op. I think it's a great, way to see the city. But you are right. It's one of many public sculptures that we've got. And I think what I usually encourage people to do is to set their expectations with the bean, right? Like it's cool, it's fun to look at, but what are you going to do after 10 minutes, right? Like you're not climbing to the top of it. There's no ride. It's just you look at it, you take your pictures, and you get on with it. So while they are so close to downtown, I like to sketch out a little walking path to people and explain to them that they've seen many of these statues in some of their favorite movies and TV shows and make it a bit more of a public art walking tour.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Now, I've, in checking out your history, I know you've done a lot of business writing.
Mhm.
Has the business side of you helped with travel? Has it changed kind of how you view travel or vice versa?
Most definitely. I think I look at travel through not only the lens of a traveler, but also through more of a business journalist lens. I want to know what's making some of these businesses work, what decisions they're making now that might signal changes to consumer experiences in the future. I'm always pulling up, SEC filings and other documentation to see what's going on beneath the surface behind some of these experiences that I've had. And I think it also makes me think a little bit more critically. I always wonder what might be the motivations that a certain tourism board or a certain company might have when they're making an announcement. Are they really staying true to these announcements? I think that it gives me perspective to be a little bit more of a fighter for accountability on behalf of consumers and someone who can see and forecast trends that are coming in the industry.
And I know you obviously you travel for jobs,
Mhm.
but do you ever pick a place where you want to go and kind of backwards into it to say, I really want to go here, so let me figure out a story that I could write for something.
Always. I think it's always kind of in the back of my mind is this is an interesting reason to go here. Let me see what I can find from it. So I think I've gone into it from, I really love this place. Let me see if there's a story that I can find there. For example, I love Lisbon, so I get back every time I can. Last time I was there, I started thinking about the African history of Lisbon, went on an African history tour. Now I'm trying to figure out how do I pull those pieces together into a story that maybe hasn't been told widely. Sometimes it's a vacation. One time, a friend and I found $400 flights to Helsinki and turned it into a 2 week trip across the Baltic. So we did Helsinki, Tallinn, a road trip
Oh.
across Latvia to Riga, and then we went to St. Petersburg. And this was my attempt at not working, right? So I was just going to enjoy this lovely vacation with my friend. And in St. Petersburg, we ended up at the Soviet Arcade Museum, which was unlike any other place I've ever been. And I'm taking notes on the back of the program, completely failing to not work. And it ended up being one of my first stories for Travel and Leisure. So I think that, just through the course of it, you sometimes see things after having been a journalist for 20 years and you're like, that is a story. And I'm so obsessed with it that I've got to tell it.
Well, now you brought up another question. Can you ever just go somewhere and completely unplug your travel writer mind?
I think that's something that's really hard to do. But the one trick that I found is going places that I already know and love well can be a really easier way for me to do that. Now, I'm not saying that I might not find a story, but if it's a place that I've written about extensively, then I might just be able to relax. For example, New York. I've written about New York extensively. Everybody else is writing about New York. I know it really well. So I don't feel the need to kind of go and do all of the things anymore or to find that story angle in the city with so many writers. So it's easier for me to go to a place like that and say, just be.
Cool. So what's next? What is next for you?
And next for me is another Lonely Planet guidebook. This time I'm going to be writing the chapter on Tamil Nadu, which is my family's home state from India.
Wow. Well, you got to be
Yeah,
excited about that. When is that coming out?
that will actually be out in about a year, a year from maybe February. So I'm actually going to go and report it at the end of this month into December and January.
That's got to be really special, considering the your family and all.
Oh, yes, I have a full team of unpaid interns known as my family that doesn't completely understand what they've gotten themselves into. But I'm looking forward to digging a little deeper and learning a bit more about myself in the process.
Well, I look forward to reading that too. Now that I know a little bit of the background of that, that's
Mhm.
awesome. Listen, it's been a pleasure, really pleasure talking to you. I love your platform. I love all the aspects of it. I love that there's a little bit of business. I love that you focus on people of color as well. I love your mindset. I really, as soon as I landed on your stuff, I really like did a deep dive into it, and I'm really impressed with everything you do. Is what I'm trying to say.
Aw,
Um,
thank you very much, John.
before I let you go, tell everybody where they could find more information about you, where they could find you online.
Sure, I am at travelwithmeena.com.
Simple enough. That's where I
Mhm.
found. Well, actually, I found you on social media, but I that led me to your travel site. I mean, it's really been a pleasure. As I said, I won't fanboy too much more, but it's been a pleasure talking to you. I appreciate your time, and I wish you safe travels.
Thanks, same to you, and I hope to run into you somewhere here in Chicago.
Got to do it at some point, right?
Indeed. All right.
Thank you
Thanks
very
for
much.
reaching out, John. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.
Bye bye.